There's something deeply unsettling about silence. When you stop contacting a woman, something happens, not just in the silence of the phone, but in the silence of her mind. And today, I want to take you through the subtle yet powerful shifts that occur when a man pulls back, not out of spite, not to play games, but because he chooses to reclaim his peace, his power, or simply his space. Because despite what pop culture may tell you, silence isn't weakness. Silence speaks. And trust me, when a woman hears that silence, she listens. When you stop contacting a woman, the first thing that happens, often quietly, subtly, is that she begins to reflect. At first, it might seem like your absence hasn't made the slightest ripple. She goes on with her daily routine, scrolls through her feed, posts a picture with a bright caption, maybe even laughs with friends. But don't mistake that outward calm for inward certainty. Women are deeply perceptive, emotionally tuned in to the changes in energy, tone, and pattern. And your silence? It's a disruption, a shift. And shifts always cause reflection. Not necessarily panic, not always hurt, but reflection, always. She may ask herself why the messages have stopped. She might wonder if you're just busy or if something more serious is going on. In the beginning, she'll likely try to rationalize it. Maybe you're tired, maybe you're focusing on work, maybe something came up. But when the hours turn to days and the days begin to stretch with no sign of your usual presence, her mind starts to turn inward. She starts to remember your last conversation. She replays how things ended. Was there tension? Was there a shift in your tone? Did she say something off? Women often begin their reflection by retracing steps. They go back to moments, words, small things you said that may not have seemed important at the time. This process isn't always conscious. It can happen during a walk, while lying in bed, or in the middle of a meeting when her mind drifts. That space you left behind begins to echo. She begins to hear the silence more clearly. She might reread old messages, not because she misses you right away, but because she's trying to decode what changed. Was there a warning? Was she distracted and didn't notice you pulling back? This reflection, though quiet, is powerful. It's a pause that causes her to stop and question. And in that questioning, something starts to shift inside her. And this is where the emotional weight begins to build. Because whether you were someone she cared deeply for or someone she was still figuring out, your sudden silence has disrupted the emotional rhythm. And rhythm, once broken, makes people pay attention. She might begin to notice the small ways she was used to your presence, your good morning texts, your funny memes, your quick check-ins. Suddenly, the absence of those small things feels louder than any conversation you ever had. And that absence becomes a mirror. It shows her the space you once filled. Now she's left with the image of that space and the question, what did it really mean to her? This is when deeper emotional reflection begins. If she had feelings she was hiding or ignoring, your silence has now given them room to surface. If she took your presence for granted, she's now forced to reconsider that. If she felt overly confident that you'd always be around, this new version of you, silent, unavailable, challenges that assumption. Women think in layers. It's not just about, he hasn't texted me. It becomes, what does this say about how he sees me? Or, did I overlook his value? Or even, was I too dismissive when he was showing up for me? The silence creates a doorway into her emotional landscape, and through that door, she begins to wander. Sometimes she'll feel guilt, sometimes regret, sometimes just curiosity. But no matter what she feels, she's now in a space where your absence has made her look inward. And that's where all emotional transformation begins. Not with noise, not with confrontation, but with stillness. And in this stillness, She may begin to realize things she didn't want to see before. Your silence has become a quiet storm in her thoughts, a wake-up call that makes her question how she showed up, what she overlooked, and whether she truly saw you for who you were when you were available, attentive, consistent, and right there. Once the silence has lingered long enough, once your absence has turned into a noticeable shift in her emotional space, she won't be able to resist the urge to test the waters. Curiosity, after all, is a natural response to unanswered questions. The mind doesn't like open loops. And when someone who was once consistent suddenly disappears, the human instinct is to check in, to find out what changed, to close the loop. She might not make a grand gesture or pour her heart out right away. No, women are far more subtle and calculated than that. She might start small, a simple text that says, "Hey," or "Hope you're doing well." She may react to your social media post with an emoji or drop a vague comment just to see how you respond. It's not about the words she uses, it's about the intent behind them. She's not just checking on you, she's checking on your emotional availability. She wants to know if your silence was final or if there's still a space where she can find your presence again. These moments are not random. They're deliberate. She might say it was accidental or that she just thought of you, but behind that message is a quiet storm of internal questions. She wants to know if she still matters to you, even just a little. She wants to know if the connection you once shared still holds some weight in your heart. And even more, she wants to know if you've moved on. That curiosity isn't always about wanting you back. It's often about wanting to understand where she now stands in your world. The truth is, when a woman reaches out after you've gone silent, it's because something within her has shifted. It may be pride mixed with vulnerability, hesitation wrapped in intrigue. But no matter the reason, the moment she decides to send that message, she's stepping into your silence to see how it holds her. Sometimes she'll disguise the message with humor or lightheartedness. She might say something like, "You disappeared on me," or "Guess you're too busy for me now," masking real concern with sarcasm. Other times she'll pretend it's about something random, like asking for a recommendation or reminding you of an old joke. But make no mistake, there's always a purpose. She's testing not just if you'll reply, but how you'll reply. Will you sound cold? Will you be warm? Will you ignore her completely? Every reaction from you tells her something about where she stands. And this test isn't always about getting you back. It's about understanding if you've really let go. This isn't a game, it's an emotional checkpoint. Women are intuitive, and even when they act unbothered, they often feel more than they show. So when you stop contacting her and she begins to test the waters, it's a sign that your silence did in fact land. It reached her. It made her pause. And now through these small tests, she's navigating her way through the uncertainty. She may not even be aware of the deeper layers of her own intentions, but her actions reveal what she might not yet be ready to say out loud. She wants to know if the door is still open, even if just slightly. She wants to know if she still has a place in your emotional space. And she wants to know what your silence really means. Is it distance with a purpose? Is it the end of the connection? Or is it a mirror she's being forced to look into, one that's now showing her a version of you she hadn't fully appreciated before? Before a woman's heart fully registers the shift, her ego is often the first to respond. When you stop contacting her, the emotional silence you leave behind doesn't go unnoticed. And while her soul might still be deciding how it feels, her ego jumps into action to fill the gap. That ego wants to be reassured, to know it still holds power, to prove that she was the one in control of the emotional dynamic all along. This is especially true if she felt that she was the one being pursued, admired, or desired. When your communication suddenly stops, the ego takes it personally. It begins whispering things like, "How dare he ignore me?" or "Why hasn't he checked in? Doesn't he know who I am?" And from those whispers, behaviors are born. She might not say anything directly, but her social media becomes a tool for performance. Suddenly, she posts pictures that are carefully chosen, stories that are subtly directed, captions that carry a tone of empowerment or casual indifference. It's all intentional. It's not always about being seen by the world. It's about being seen by you. It's about reminding you of what you're missing, or at least convincing herself that she still has the ability to draw your attention without saying a word. These actions are not accidental. They're the ego's way of regaining ground. If she felt even a moment of vulnerability, even a flash of doubt about where she stands with you, she will attempt to reassert her value externally. And this doesn't mean she's shallow or insincere. It means she's human. We all reach for validation when our certainty is shaken. In some cases, she'll pretend that your silence means nothing to her. She'll act as if it's normal, expected, maybe even preferred. But the effort she puts into pretending tells a different story. Pretending not to care takes more energy than actually not caring, and her actions start to reflect that. If she's quick to show that she's moved on, or eager to demonstrate her happiness without you, that's often a sign that she's reacting not from peace, but from pride. Her ego wants to know that she can still win, that even if you pull back, she still holds the upper hand emotionally. This becomes more about her own internal dialogue than it is about you. At this point, you might see signs of emotional contradiction. One moment she's distant and detached, the next she's posting something that seems like a hidden message directed at you. One day she ignores you, the next she finds a reason to like your post. These swings are not random. They are the ego battling with the heart. The ego says, "Forget him," while the heart quietly asks, "But what if he mattered?" And this conflict plays out not in words, but in behavior. Her responses become less about you and more about how she feels about herself in your absence. Has she lost her hold on your attention? Has her influence faded? These are the silent questions she's trying to answer. The ego wants confirmation that it's still desired, still seen, still chosen. And when you stop contacting her, that confirmation is missing. She doesn't know where she stands. And that not knowing triggers a silent panic. Not always dramatic, not always visible, but internal and persistent. This is when she might overcompensate, trying to appear completely unfazed. She tells herself she doesn't need to care, that your silence is a blessing, that she's too good to be affected. But even in those affirmations, the ego reveals its own insecurity. Because true confidence doesn't need performance. It simply rests. When you stop contacting her and her ego responds before her heart does, it's a signal that your presence once meant something. Something her pride may have buried, but something your silence has now quietly uncovered. When you stop contacting a woman, especially one who was used to having emotional influence over you, she begins to feel a shift that disrupts the balance of control she once believed she had. Whether consciously or not, many relationships operate on an unspoken emotional power dynamic. One person often gives a little more, tries a little harder, or expresses a little deeper. If you were the one consistently initiating, showing up, and emotionally investing, she grew accustomed to that rhythm. She felt safe in knowing that you were there, reliable, available. But when that pattern is suddenly interrupted by your silence, it creates a vacuum, and in that vacuum, she begins to feel the loss of control. It doesn't matter whether she cared deeply or was still exploring her emotions toward you. The moment you step back, she feels the difference, and what often follows is an attempt to reassert the balance. It may not be obvious, it may not be immediate, but it begins to surface in ways that seem subtle on the outside, but are driven by a very clear internal motive. She might mirror your silence, not out of peace, but out of strategy. She may ignore your last message or delay her response to test whether you'll follow up. In some cases, she'll do things that are designed to provoke a reaction. Post a picture that hints she's moved on, Laugh a little louder in the presence of others. Drop hints that she's suddenly too busy or too occupied to care. These are not signs of indifference. They are signs of her trying to take the lead in a dynamic where she feels she's losing emotional leverage. She may start to act as though she's unfazed, as though your absence has no impact, but this is often a performance rooted in her desire to remain in control. She might show signs of confidence, strength, even flirtation with others. Not always because she's genuinely detached, but because she wants to be seen as the one who stays strong while you disappeared. It's her way of rewriting the story in her favor, of proving to herself and maybe even to others that she never needed you, even if a part of her misses the comfort of your presence. The effort she puts into appearing unaffected is often the clearest sign that she is, in fact, affected. In trying to regain the emotional upper hand, she may also start comparing how things used to be when you were constantly available with how they are now. If you used to chase and now you don't, if you used to ask how she's doing and now you don't even check in, she starts to feel that loss in her pride. And pride will often try to compensate by doing the opposite, by pulling back even further, or by pretending to have options. She may start interacting with others more openly, or highlight how fulfilled her life is without you, not because she's over you, but because she's hoping you'll notice what she's trying to show you. That she's still in control, still wanted, still powerful. These responses are often unconscious. She may not even realize she's trying to rebalance the scales. She may genuinely believe she's moving on, but the timing of her actions and the underlying energy always tells the truth. People don't try to prove they're over someone unless there's something left to prove. She may say she's indifferent, but her actions tell a different story. The very fact that she's reacting at all means your silence altered the emotional territory, and when that territory feels unfamiliar, she moves quickly to reclaim the power she thought she had. Whether through distance, display, or distraction, her goal becomes simple: to see if she can still influence you the way she used to. And if she can't, that realization becomes its own form of reflection, one she may not admit, but one she definitely feels. As time stretches and your silence remains consistent, a deeper part of her begins to awaken. Not her ego, not her need for control, but something far more intimate and revealing: emotional realization. This is the moment when everything quiets down around her, the games, the distractions, the performances, and she begins to feel the truth of what your absence really means. In the beginning, she may have convinced herself that she was fine, that she was better off, that it was no big deal. But silence has a way of peeling back those protective layers. It doesn't demand anything loudly. It simply exists, creating space for all the things we've been too busy or too proud to feel. That space becomes a mirror, and in it she starts to see what she had, what she ignored, what she misunderstood. She begins to realize that your consistency had weight, that your messages held meaning, that your efforts were not guaranteed. If she was used to your attention and never questioned its presence, your absence now forces her to confront what she took for granted. It's no longer just about you being gone. It's about what your presence once did for her, how it made her feel seen, important, chosen. And when those feelings no longer come from you, she starts to feel the quiet loss of them. Not in loud breakdowns, but in still moments of clarity. Maybe she's sitting alone with her phone, scrolling through old conversations. Maybe she hears a song that reminds her of something you once said. Maybe she's surrounded by people, but still feels that space where your presence used to fill her. It's in these moments that the emotional truth begins to sink in. Not just that you stopped reaching out, but that she may have pushed away something real. She begins to wonder if she misread your intentions, if she undervalued your consistency, if she was too casual with something she now wishes she had held on to more carefully. And these thoughts don't come with drama. They come with quiet weight. She may not even share them with anyone, but inside they sit like stones on her chest, reminders of a connection that could have been nurtured but wasn't. She starts to piece together the difference between attention and presence, between being admired and being understood. Your silence becomes the contrast that makes her realize that what you offered wasn't ordinary, that while others might compliment her or flirt with her, very few ever showed up with the kind of emotional depth and presence you brought. That maybe, in trying to protect her independence or prove a point, she lost something she wasn't ready to admit she valued. And that realization, though internal, changes everything. Because it's not about missing a message or craving a moment. It's about missing a connection that felt genuine. This isn't always a moment of regret. Sometimes it's just a new awareness, an understanding that what she thought was replaceable isn't so easy to replicate. That the feeling you gave her, the security, the emotional safety, the subtle but steady way you made her feel chosen, isn't something she's found again since you stepped back. And it's in that space, between realization and acceptance, that she begins to feel a shift, not in how she sees you, but in how she sees herself. She starts asking deeper questions. Why did she respond the way she did? Why did she not see your value in the moment? What part of her was too distracted, too guarded, too afraid to meet you where you were? Your silence did more than create distance. It revealed truth. And when she finally feels that truth, she doesn't just remember you. She remembers the version of herself she was when she had you. And sometimes that memory is what stays with her the longest, long after the conversations fade and the silence becomes normal. So yes, when you stop contacting a woman, something changes. Not always dramatically, not always visibly, but always quietly, powerfully. She may reflect, she may retreat, she may reach out, but most importantly, she will feel it. Silence isn't always about ignoring someone. Sometimes it's about rediscovering yourself. And in that process, others begin to see you differently too. If your absence doesn't move her, your presence never truly mattered. But if it does, if she comes back with respect, clarity, and a deeper understanding, then maybe, just maybe, your silence said everything she needed to hear.